Hey guys, Icon here from Voclia Music. Very excited to be on this live stream with everyone. I'm just gonna give a couple people. I'm just gonna give people a couple more minutes to sign on before starting. There's lots of stuff we're gonna go over today, but the main topic is gonna be ways to use Dubler 2 live, and I'll actually bring up Dubler closer here. And maybe minimize everything else. So yeah, this maybe get rid of everything, put them there. Yeah. I guess I'll get started slowly. Just checking to see if there are still people signing in. I'm just gonna open the YouTube here so I can see your messages. Sorry. Okay. Hi, someone says, "How are you?" Thanks so much. All good, all good. Like I said, very excited to be doing this live stream today because it's something we've been thinking about a lot as well. Different applications for using Dubler live, and we're going to be camera double. Someone's saying shouldn't be. But yeah, let me know if you have any trouble with audio or if there's anything wrong with the camera. Right now, oh, someone's. Oh, Doubler's on my camera. Okay. So okay, I think that should be a little bit better. Let me. Yeah. Okay, that should be fixed. So yeah, we've been thinking a lot about different ways to use Doubler in live settings, and we're actually releasing some very cool content over the next couple of months, hopefully next month, about people using Doubler in a live show or during a live performance. And there's so many ways it can actually be used for live. It's important that it's said that it's not necessarily a tool designed to be used for live. Doubler is definitely more of a production tool. It's a tool that allows you to be expressive in your own production space, experiment with a lot of things, find melodies, bass lines, chords, and then kind of smooth it out, edit it, put it together, and create your production from there. But like I said, there are so many ways you can use it live, and I'm gonna discuss some of those today. If you have any questions or want to hear Doubler with a specific kind of sound, be sure to write it in the chat. You can say, "Oh, I want to hear Doubler with strings. I want to hear it with a pad. I want to hear some of the beatbox drums." I'm gonna cover a lot of that stuff and a lot of Doubler 2's features in the stream while going over different ideas for live performance. But if you have anything specific that you want to see, that you want to ask, please let me know. I'll press pause and then answer your question and just get on with it that way. So first of all, it's important to differentiate the different sides of Doubler again. So mainly, Doubler is formed of a triggers and a pitch function. The triggers is what you see on a lot of our social media and a lot of how beatboxers use Doubler, and it's basically triggering drum sounds with different sounds you make with your voice. So if I do but, I can map that to a kick. If I do cha, I can get that to a snare. So the most obvious way that people have been using Doubler live or are thinking to use Dubler live is beatboxing drums live while at a performance. For example, if you're a singer, you'd be able to beatbox a drum pattern, maybe loop that, and then just sing over it or like play keys over it. So for example, I also have a you can't see it in the view, but I have a MIDI keyboard right here. So I'm just gonna see if I can play a quick chord with that. So I'm using my right hand basically to play easy E minor and G major chord, simple on the keyboard I have in front of me. And I'm just gonna try to use my voice to play drums with this while I'm playing it. So this is where Dubler kind of adds an extra limb. You get to multitask while doing one thing. So I'm just, again, so I'm just gonna train some triggers here right away, so you can just quickly demo the beatboxing MIDI drums function we have going here. So I have this drum kit in Ableton. I'm just gonna clear everything I've done before here. So I have this kick drum. I want to play this kick drum with a butt sound. So I'm gonna start recording some takes. But I have to. So I'm gonna head to this trigger. Clear, I'll take it. So I stopped recording my takes, and now when I head back to the play tab, so I have my first trigger in place, and now I can have my second trigger. So I want a snare, and I'm going to do a ch sound to launch that. So by clicking record takes and recording the same sound over, I'm training Dubler to recognize that sound as a MIDI note, basically. Cha 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 cha. So you saw that my snare did a double hit there, basically. It went cha-cha. So one way to solve that, if you're an avid Dubler user, you'll already know this kind of stuff, basically. Oh, I'm just getting some questions right away. Okay, tips on using triggers and pitch together. So actually the official advice on that for using both the trigger side, which I'm demonstrating now, and pitch at the same time is a little bit tedious, and it's much safer for a live performance setting to activate one and deactivate the other while you're using it, because they do have some overlap. At the end of the day, you're playing notes with the triggers too. So if you have a synth patch or a chord patch active, you'll essentially be hitting drums, but you'll also be playing notes from that synth patch. So real best practice is when you're using the pitch side, mute the triggers. When you're using the triggers, mute the pitch side. And I guess the next question you'd probably ask for that would be, is there a way to map that to something, to a hardware device? And unfortunately, that is something we're looking into for the future. It's definitely something to be considered, to be able to just map this pitch button to a hard piece of hardware, or this triggers on and off to a piece of hardware, so you can easily kind of switch between the two. But like I said, that's something we're working on for the future currently. So back to the drums. So I've trained a kick and snare sound. So easy. This is one of the more definitely really accurate, very low latency. The key factor again with Dubler is that you're using Dubler in your DAW with a low buffer size. So we recommend 128, but we're definitely aware, like in a live session with like lots of plugins going, lots of backing tracks going in a live session, you might need a bit higher of a buffer size. So you could also try with 256, of course. Maybe for live, 256 is safer. It might give that little bit of latency. Maybe not if your computer is stronger and one of the more newer M2s or something, for example. But if you use it at 128, you shouldn't get any latency at all. So the first way to use Dubler Live, to continue what I was saying, would just be to multitask. So I'm going to arm my keyboard here. right hand playing chords on the keyboard, and then with my voice, I'm just laying down a beat. And if you have a looping kind of situation set up, what you'd be able to do is loop the chords and then maybe loop the beat and then sing over it if you're a singer, or play other instruments over it, or move on to Dubler's pitch side, which we'll also look at in a sec. So beatboxing drums is definitely really simple and the most straightforward way to use Dubler live, but you can also use these triggers for other things. So for example, you could use them to turn on and off an effect. So for example, I'll go back to my keys patch. And if I have my Dubler mic, let me know if you can't see the mic basically. Oops, sorry. So I'm going to just put my mic on the stand here. So I'm going to basically... I keep hearing drums for some reason. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Wow, I keep hearing this snares for some reason. Sorry, just a moment. It's getting MIDI, I think, from my keyboard. Sorry. So what I was gonna say is you can use triggers to turn on and off devices. So for example, I'm going back to my keys patch. Take in from. I'm just gonna find a quick effect. So I put on this echo effect basically. That's just adding some delay and echo. What I want to do is map a trigger to turn on and off this echo device. So in Ableton, what I'd have to do is hit Command M to map it, and then do one of my triggers. So I'll do the bass drum I just trained, for example, and that'll turn on and off the echo. So, I don't want to hear the drums though right now, so so I'm not hearing the drums right now because I've muted the drums channel, but echo gone. Echo back. I'll add some reverb to make it more evident. I can put a more obvious effect. Maybe I'll use a phaser instead because it's already pretty delayed, the patch. I'll map my trigger instead of the echo to turn on and off the phaser here. So as I do the but sound, basically, that I've mapped to a MIDI note, I map that MIDI note to turn on and off this phaser. So by doing it, you can even do it like really fast, and it's really responsive. So for example, when your hands are occupied and you want to keep changing effects, you can map different effects. This could be even if you're playing drums. So like we have some videos with drummers who do this, where they basically are playing drums, And while they're doing that, they have some effects mapped to the characteristics of their voice or some triggers. And while they're playing drums, they can turn on effects, turn off effects. The same with keyboard players. If you're using both hands to play keys, play some simple chords, you can use triggers to turn on and on effects, just like people do with pedals. You press a pedal with your foot, the effect comes on, you press, it comes off basically. So this kind of opens the door to use the effects in your DAW while you're live and while you're doing anything that has both of your hands occupied. Just to take this a little bit further, while we're talking about effects and modulation. So another way to use Dubler Live, we're kind of skipping over the pitch section right now, essentially, because we'll get to that later about some ideal settings you can use to kind of sing melodies live or sing chords live. I just want to mute the triggers for a sec and jump to the pitch side here, but I'm going to disable every note. So I'm not going to use the notes side of pitch basically. I only want to use these vowel modulations and the envelope modulation here. So what I want to do is, again, I'm thinking of a scenario where both of my hands are occupied with something. So again, I'm playing. And I want this filter to go up and down. So I want that kind of stuff to happen, but I don't want to do it with my mouse. And let's say I'm using both my hands, so I don't want to do it by mapping this cutoff to a knob or on a MIDI controller. I just want to do it with my voice, and I also want to have different effects mapped to my voice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map my ah vowel here to open the cutoff, and I'm going to map the E vowel, for example, to control the dry wet of this flanger. So we did a video recently about this featuring pianist Cenk Esen, spelled C-E-N-K. You can check that out on our YouTube channel, and it's essentially about mapping effects to Dubler while playing keys and while playing synths, so that you can modulate effects live. And when you're doing that, you're not really worrying about singing pitch or singing, let's say, singing C, C sharp, D sharp. It's not about singing notes. It's only using your voice to modulate parameters while playing live. So I'm gonna do a quick example of that. So again, I'm just gonna mess with this cutoff, and I'm gonna mess with the dry wet of this flanger. I'm gonna make it a bit more intense. So right now I'm doing it with the mouse, which isn't fun at all, basically. And I want to use both my hands while playing keys, so I don't want to have one of my hands messing with a knob. So I'm just going to hit Command M in Ableton again. Cut off. So what I did there was I mapped the ah vowel to the cutoff, and I mapped the E vowel to the flanger. So you see, even while I'm talking now, I'm not even touching anything. You can see that the cutoff and dry wet are moving. Ah, So when I do ah, the cutoff goes really up, and then when I do E, the cutoff goes down and the flanger goes up. So here's how that would sound with a key, for example. Into another key. So I'm playing the notes with my hands and just using my voice to modulate effects, basically. And again, like I said, this isn't only about playing keys. You could be playing some percussion with your hands. You could be playing drums. You could even be playing bass guitar or guitar and use your voice with the microphone to modulate whatever effect you want. And it sounds like a bit messy right now and not super responsive, but with Dubler 2 we introduced these amazing limit and controls besides these control dials, so you can kind of have more of a grip on what's going on. So the right side of these is basically controlling how high the filter can go, for example, because my filter is mapped to A. If I lower this, the filter can open less. So I'll show that quickly. And sometimes you see it's taking a while for it to open all the way. If I lower this max, it becomes easier for the dial to open all the way. I kind of missed the high frequency, so I'm going to let it open more. So the cutoff's going way too low. It's going to 0 basically when I use E, but I still want it to kind of be there. So I'm going to raise the minimum value of this up a little bit. So you could be doing anything and just modulate whatever effect you want in your DAW. And those are with the vowels, but this ENV is also very useful because you can map the loudness. So you don't even have to make a specific E kind of sound. You can make whatever sound into the microphone that you want, and the louder you are, you can see, the louder you are, the more that effect is basically modulated. I'm just checking to see if we have any questions, by the way. Yeah. Okay. So another way. So that was a bit of a sidetrack into modulating effects using the vowels while your hands are occupied in a live set. I'm just gonna go back to these triggers here. So remember, we had triggers mapped to drum sounds. So we talked about using triggers to turn on and off audio effects or devices or plugins you have. But what you can also do with triggers, especially if you're an Ableton user and you're doing an Ableton live set, is you can use it to launch loops. So for example, I'm just going to load up a percussion here, maybe a shaker. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to load up that loop there. So I can map my trigger to launch that, for example. So I'm going to train a third trigger now, and I'm going to use a snap actually, not even going to use a sound of my voice, and I'm going to use that snap to launch this loop in my DAW. So that's not hitting any note because I set it to a super low note, a C-2, where you wouldn't find any drums or any notes on patches that you're singing. So I'm just going to use that as a way to press play on this. So like with live performances and electronic music, it's really all about getting away from the mouse and the keyboard and just kind of being engaged with your audience and being engaged in like the musical stuff you're doing. So instead of looking at your computer, reaching for a mouse, looking for a button, if you just want something to happen and you do it with a snap of the finger, that looks much cooler and can create a better aura around your live performance. So I'm just gonna MIDI map that now, Command M. It's not working for some reason. Let me see. Did it not like? Okay. So. And I'll map another trigger to stop that whole channel basically. So that could be a clap. So I'm MIDI mapping this whole channel to be stopped with that clap. So basically, that allows you to launch and stop basically. So I'm just going to make sure this is to a low note as well so that it doesn't conflict with any other notes that we play. So I'm putting it all the way down to an E-2. So I might need to retrain that. So you basically can map commands with any sound you make with your body or any sound you sing, and map those to parameters in Ableton to control your live set. So I'm just going to launch that and combine it with the kick and snare that I did before and see if I can get a beat going. So. So just using my voice and a couple sounds I made with my hands, I'm able to launch drums and launch a sample, get it going, stop it, and etc. So another really cool way, so we'll move away from the triggers for a sec now and go to chords basically. So the way, another safe way to use a doubler live is to perform a couple chords basically. But you don't want your chord progressions when you're playing live to be maybe that complex. So you want to maybe stick to 2 or 3 note options, and I'll show you how to set that up quickly. So we're in an F minor scale. I'm just reactivating all the notes here. Muting the drum channel quickly. So I've muted the triggers. I have this pad patch here that I've been using. But instead of I've been playing it with the keys so far, so I'm going to say goodbye to the keyboard for now and start working it with Dubler. No audio. So that's playing individual notes right now because chords aren't activated. If I activate chords, oh, the cutoff still mapped to the vowel, so I'm just gonna get rid of the MIDI mappings, Command M, and just delete all of them. So a really cool way to start off one of your tracks would be to maybe have a backing track beat going. I'll again maybe use this shaker. as just to give me a tempo, and maybe I'll actually program in a quick beat as well. Let's assume this is you press play in Ableton. This is your backing track that you have live. Assuming you have a MIDI controller like the Novation Launchpad or lots of other MIDI controllers that allow you to live loop things, I'm going to use my mouse for now, which is pretty boring, but I'm just going to basically try to quickly record a chord loop. And I'm assuming that if this was a live performance, I'd have my beat backing track, I'd sing my chords, and then maybe I'd move on to something else. So for now, I'm just going to try to live loop a chord progression. Like that one. I'm just gonna actually go to Dubler and make the chords a little bit more interesting. So they're simply triads right now. So it's all one of the best parts about Dubler is that you're able to change up the chords here. I'm gonna change it to F minor 7. I'm gonna change this G to maybe C minor over D, G sharp major, make that a 7th as well, A sharp. Just change it up. Just even if you don't know music theory, don't be intimidated by this view. It's you just have to be in a mindset of experimentation, trying out different chords. And I'm also going to use the spread voicing, which spreads the notes across 4 or 5 octaves, making the chords sound huge. And this works great with pads, ensemble sounds, orchestral instruments, and everything. So let me just try that. I'm also going to put my octave up in Dubler. So something's going on with the sound, sorry. So I'm gonna try this again. So could also speed that up. So yeah, a safe way to do chords is to basically kind of not allow every single note to be an option. So you kind of, before you perform live, I would definitely advise that you kind of practice with this and you kind of figure out which chords you're gonna have as an option. So, and what could help you while you're performing live is maybe to cut some of these notes here so you don't have the option to play every one of these chords. And you can see in the chords tab, when you're preventing some notes from being able to be sung, you can see them blacked out here in the chords tab. So you'll get a visual picture also of what kind of chords you're left with as an option. Sometimes it's even safe to go for, like, if you have a 3-chord progression, don't worry, just keep 3 notes open. It'll just lower the percentage of chance that you could make a mistake while you're performing live, and you don't want a wrong chord to just come in out of nowhere while you're performing a live set for sure. So while speaking about these note restrictions and chords and everything and settings. You'll recall we trained triggers here, so we have 4 triggers, a kick and a snare, and just these 2 that were meant to kind of launch clips and turn on and off effects. And now we've done some intense settings with blocking notes. And during a live performance, you might think to yourself, it would take a long time during a live performance for me to come back with the mouse and just turn all these on. So actually, that's where the profiles feature of Dubler comes in. So I'm just going to save this profile quickly. So I'll say this is song 1 in my live set, for example. If I go home, so I have a bunch of profiles here. This is the one I just made, the song 1 live. So let's say I'm performing a live set with 3 songs. I would have 1 profile for each one, and in those profiles, the key settings are basically, and you see here, so F minor, the scale we're working with, you have the triggers. Your triggers are already trained here. You don't have to retrain those. The moment you open this profile, you're set to go with your song. The notes we canceled out, they're saved. The settings we did here with the vowels are all saved. If you're using Dubler's pitch bend function, that will be on, for example, if you're using it in that song, or off. The chords you chose, remember we replaced some chords with major sevenths, different kind of slash chords, sus chords, and the chords we blocked out are also still applicable. So when you're performing with Dubler live, it's really practical to have a profile ready with your triggers ready, your chosen scale ready. That's also crucial. So not all your songs are going to be in the same key, of course. So one of your songs will be in F minor, one will be in E major, one will be in C minor. And it's, instead of just using your mouse to go click and change those after every single song, the most practical way is to just go home and choose your profile, and that'll just make it so much easier and avoid you having to retrain stuff, and it'll mean everything's ready for you the moment you're about to perform your new song. I'm just checking something quickly. Okay, so we talked about chords, and we talked about triggers, and we talked about profiles. Let me just check if anyone has any questions. Okay, so what I've kind of been avoiding, and I've been avoiding it on purpose, is performing melodies live. We talked about, loud drum there. So we talked about, we talked about triggers, we talked about chords, we talked about using vowels and envelopes basically to modulate effects. But one thing we didn't really talk about at the end of the day right so far is singing melodies live. So this is probably, admittedly, the most difficult thing to do live in Dubler, and when you're performing live. And the reason for this is that when you're in a live setting, when you're in a room, a concert hall, or whatever, you're gonna have inputs from all over the place. So you can see even now while I'm talking, hey, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. My mic's a bit far, but even when I'm talking, Dubler is picking up some kind of pitch. So the idea that you're gonna sing a perfectly accurate melody in a room full of people talking, drinking, all kinds of sounds coming, the sounds from your backing tracks coming on the stage, makes the idea of singing a melody very hard live. And lots of people kind of do get excited about that when they see Dubler for the first time. Oh, I can take the mic live and just start soloing, and all the notes are going to be accurate. But it definitely can change depending on whatever scenario you're in. But there are some settings that can really help with it. For example, if you lower your input level all the way down when you're live. So this means you have to sing kind of louder into the Dubler mic or whatever mic you're using. So I'm just going to show how that sounds with this. Sorry. You see when I've now moved away kind of from the mic, and it's not picking it up because the input level is all the way low. that means it's not really picking up what I'm saying anymore. But when I get closer, but if the input level was high, I can use the mic. I can use the mic all the way, if I can place it a large distance from me, and it'll still pick up the note. So huge setting for using Dubler to sing melodies in live performance is lowering this input level all the way down, just in hope that it won't pick up all the other noises going on in the room or wherever you're performing. And raising the stickiness high as well will help with this. So stickiness is basically the resistance the program puts between switching notes. So you want to, if you want it to be less sensitive and make it harder to switch from note to note, that's when you raise the stickiness essentially, and that can just really help increase your accuracy in general, but especially in a live setting. If you don't want even the smallest sound from far away to trigger a note with Dubler, you're gonna need to have the stickiness setting pretty high. So I'm just gonna try to perform a melody quickly. So you saw I was trying to perform a melody there. For example, let's say the melody is, but I don't want some of those other notes. So a couple other notes crept in there while I was trying to perform that. So just like we did with the chords, it's a really good idea to prevent some notes. So this G note came in, I heard that B note came in, but I just want to perform these two notes in my melody. So the more I canceled out and blacked out the more I canceled out and blacked out the other notes, I'm going to raise this a little bit more for now. The more I canceled out and blacked out the other notes, the more accurate I was starting to sing my melody. So the idea that you can just have every single note available and jam that way in a live setting is very, very difficult. And I'm sure it's something we'll work on in the future for when we're thinking more about making Dubler suitable for live. But as Dubler 2 right now is mainly a production tool, when you're singing live, you should definitely block out as many notes you can possible to be able to perform a more accurate melody. So I'm just going to, again, try laying down a chord progression with the pad and try singing a melody over that just to show you again. I didn't love the chord progression I recorded before. Switching back to my pad sound. My melody. So let's say those three notes are my melody. So And another thing to mention, I just whip that up quickly. Sorry, it's a bit of a funny melody. But yeah, the idea is that Dubler in general, as a production tool, as a possible tool for live, it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of thinking about how you're going to use it. And if you really spend the time to train your triggers, prepare your profiles, and limit some of the notes you're using, take advantage of these vowels and mapping them to effects and tools, it can really, really become a great, great live tool. But it definitely, as with any musical tool, whether it be a plugin, a synth, or a MIDI controller, it definitely requires practice. But there are some really amazing and expressive ways you can use Dubler too in your live set. And I hope that gave a little bit of an idea of some ways that you can use Dubler live. So if anyone has any questions, that's basically all I had to talk about today. But if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'll sit for a couple more minutes and just see if anyone, like I said, if anyone wants me to demo Dubler with a specific kind of sound, if you want me to go over anything I talked about in a bit more depth, please let me know, and I'll just hang around a couple more minutes. But thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions ever, not now, you can contact our support team, help@voclia.co.uk. You can drop a comment on any of our YouTube videos. We make it a point to get back within 24 hours to any questions, comments, or anything. But yeah, thank you guys so much for sticking around. Rica ederim Akif. I got a Turkish comment. I'm from there, so. Yeah. I'm just sticking around, like I said, if there are any more questions, if there's anything anyone else wants to know about Dubler. Okay, it looks like there aren't many questions coming in, so if you have, like I said, contact us by email anytime, leave comments on our videos. We're very happy to get back to you right away. And thanks for tuning into this live stream. We do them every month, and we'll announce the next one and the subject of it soon as well. But this video will be available in full on the YouTube channel, so you can check it out there starting from tomorrow. So, yeah, thanks so much again, and see you guys next time.